Hello, everyone. It's our last meeting of our book club.
Last
Chapter
one.
10.
Wow.
It is.
It is mad how quickly the weeks have flown by.
I know, right?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Our last
Well, you know
one.
what? I can say that today, knowing this was going to be our last meeting, I think I did everything slower today.
Lovely.
Yeah, right? Because when you do everything slower, you're just a little more connected
Yeah.
So it was a good day from the moment I woke up.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, it is.
You do feel so much more present, when you take your time a little bit more. Everything feels so much more connected.
Yes. I always call it hurry slowly.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
And how is everyone else feeling about our last week?
Kind of bummed. I'm loving this.
Oh, us
But
too.
really enjoyed this chapter too. And so love the book. So thank you for setting up this experience. This was really important to me. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing every week, everyone, because it's been so beautiful because of you all. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's nice that it was a small little group.
Yes, I think so as well. We were saying that, myself and Anne Marie were saying it's really nice because we've gotten to know each other a bit over the weeks as well.
I think we were, because when I created the group, it was very nice that a lot of people joined. But of course we didn't know how it would work in practice. So it was kind of I remember even me and Shannon, we were saying oh, well, because I think there was 150 in the group and we were will we have to get the paid version of Zoom where you have more than 100?
Yeah.
How is it going to work?
Yeah, we were worried.
We were going into the future. We weren't being present at all. We were just what will we do?
Yeah.
We were how will everyone get to share? There's that many people. All the stress and worry.
Yeah. And I find it interesting that people are following along on this page even though they're not here. That's interesting.
I'd imagine there's people watching because the time zone differences are so big,
Yeah, we're getting a lot of viewings on the recordings. So there's definitely around 20 odd people watching on the recordings at least. So it's nice. We're connecting to people. But it would be nice if people posted as well. So this is a call out to anyone watching this later. Post something that resonated with you over the entire course of us reading this book, or a part that you really enjoyed, because we'd love to hear it. We'd love to read it afterwards, even if people weren't able to join us live.
I have a question is, are you going to keep this Facebook page up after today?
Oh, Toby's there.
I don't think there's any reason to close it or anything.
No.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring Toby into the frame.
Well, he's been our mascot from since day one.
Toby, what do you think? Oh, he said we should leave the Facebook page up. So
I think so too.
Yeah, I think we can. Well, me and Shannon didn't talk about anything, but I was just thinking we can leave it up. If we ever want to do anything in the future, we can put it there. We have no idea or anything at the moment, whether it's Eckhart related or other. There's no.
Well, I think that's a really great idea because he has this other book called The Power of Now.
Hint,
which I put on my reading list already.
We will take it under advisement.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think we could even do a New Earth again. You could even do this book every month. But I'm just joking. But
No, no, you're not joking, because definitely after this is my first read, so going through it one chapter, 1 week at a time, a little bit of it pushed me because
Yeah.
I read like 3 books at a time. I try to be doing whatever is interesting me, but I found myself putting this one off this week, maybe because I didn't want it to end. I think that was it a little bit. But really, really, this just tied it up so nicely, this chapter, and felt so empowering. So I'd like to go back and revisit the whole thing just to have that now finished sense and go back and see what I missed at the beginning of it. Or all the way through, actually, because I think you're right, Diana. You could do this all the time. It should be a constant in your life. I have several things like that I do on a daily basis or regular basis that I recheck in with. I have a girlfriend who gave me a calendar, a little flippy calendar kind of thing, right? That you go one way and then turn it over. Well, I've had it for years and I don't remember any of them when I get back to the page or the date. So it's like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's great as well. Like every time you come to it, you've got something, a new life situation or a new challenge or something that's come up, and that's it. And you're seeing it with new eyes each time as well.
Or
That's right.
honestly, just the consciousness change from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, reading it for the first time. Because I've considered myself a fairly conscious person, but this is, I'm more relaxed into it, I guess. Instead of that, where I'm realizing when ego pops up. So is this truly me, or is this my ego thinking this way? And it's just given so much, like this last chapter. These last 2 chapters are my favorites in the book, because it really is now about not so much actionable, but about being and allowing yourself to be, rather than the doing aspect, but how they relate to each other, that you can still be doing but consciously. So yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's great. Me too. And I've certainly noticed a change in myself over the course of this as well. And I think it is that meeting with people weekly and so that deep discussion that helps you really internalize these things. Because sometimes when you're like you were saying there about reading 3 books at once, and I'm pretty much the same. Like I'd listen to a lot on the go, but taking the time to properly sit down and properly absorb, and I feel like there's been a real shift with this, and it's because of that. So thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And I love this chapter because it validated us as 3 mature women in the group. I thought that was lovely.
I'm saying it nicely,
some acknowledgement
kind.
by him that there is, and I love the idea of from birth, going through your life, the journey of expansion and contraction, and really have been able to put words to my experience now, with where I'm at in my 60s. So, and it's a lovely place to be. So it's really nice to have that validation just from this chapter. I think that's the biggest thing that I got out of this one.
Yeah, that's lovely.
This is kind of maybe a synchronicity that I didn't realize, but I just started rewatching earlier today. Like I was rewatching this TV show, Grace and Frankie.
Love it.
It's fantastic.
And I was just like, oh, I wanted something like to like turn my mind off, and I was like, oh, this, and yeah, you have like Frankie, who's just this like spiritual, kind of like that, like this really spiritual character. I was like, I didn't remember this was so funny, but it's like, but anyway, I don't know. I feel like I've gotten a bit off topic, but maybe not. But I don't know how to relate it, but it relates. But I'm trying.
Well, because that's being 80, they were both 80 and reinventing their lives at that point. I think is very on topic, because instead of just going, okay, well, I liked the permission that was given for doing or non-doing. It's neither one matters. And that is so huge for me, just because I've been challenged to do with my physical, challenges, that the doing isn't about it. It isn't about that at all. And I was still expanding even when I was challenged, but I was forcing at that point because, you know, I'm not going to let this get me. And now just relaxing more. Well, I've had the experience of relaxing more and more into it over the years, the past decade, actually. And it's just lovely to be on this side and to feel that. So I'm looking forward to having maybe a couple more decades, you know, and is there still more expansion for me, or do I just enjoy the contraction now because it feels juicier somehow? I think, you know, when you're conscious of it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does, definitely. I think that's so beautiful. And it was the part of the book that as well really stuck with me this week, this expansion and contraction idea, because when he was saying it, it's like a reflection of the universe. And I just thought that was really beautiful, because it's something that I've always thought about since I was young in science class, you know, looking at those reflections in our neurons, in our cells, and then the stars and the planets and how they all go around an axis in the same way as our cells all have like mitochondria and everything going all around the neurons. And I love that idea of this reflection of the universe in us and that connection, because that's very real and something you can really see and something you can really feel as well, for me anyway. So yeah, that really stuck out with me, and it puts it in such a nice way that it is something that's to look forward to and enjoy when you're going through those contraction periods.
Yeah.
And I think that's it, because nothing's static. We're always constantly evolving one way or another, changing. Our cells are changing every moment too, you know. So but the video or the movie, Diana, that you posted, I think that really enhanced that idea of space and outer space and inner worlds, outer worlds, isn't that what it was called?
Yeah.
Is that really, you know, being able to see that, you know, from your neurons all the way out through the way that the world is, the universe is connected, to having it more tangible. Yeah, it was lovely how they two tied together.
Yeah. You know, and even right down to the design of nature. Yeah. And the fractals and I mean that you know, I go in my garden and I see fractals now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And leaf patterns, same as the patterns on your hands, and you know, and here and here, everywhere.
It's
like
amazing.
we're supposed to be doing this. It's, you know, what made humans think that you want to erase all that? I've never wanted to erase my laugh lines, you know. It shows the joy you've had in your life, you know.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like in art as well, because Shannon and Ann Marie would do a lot with creativity as a side of the spiritual journey. And in art, there is such a focus on looking at those fractals and looking at those patterns that are replicated. I mean, I remember even when I was just left school and I was like 19 and I was going into art class, and we were looking at the similarities between leaves and the hands and the lungs and the trees and all those different things in terms of taking the time to notice those details, but also to draw them as a way of being able to draw these different things and see the similarities between them. And I was just reading something today on my Instagram, which is about, you know, Leonardo da Vinci and the fact that he broke down trees. So every branch of a tree is the same width as two branches that come out of a branch. Let me explain this right. Two branches that come out of a branch are the same width of the branch before it. So it all adds up to the same width the whole time. And it's just like this beautiful balance in nature as well. So it's beautiful. And art helps, I guess, people see that and take the time to see that, because you have to slow down.
That's right. And it's, you know, and we have to be still in order to see that. You know, one of the things that when I went to go see Eckhart Tolle was that in Lake Louise, he had a challenge that everybody, and there were 700 participants, that they walk from the chateau down to a glacier, which is around Lake Louise, in silence and back. And that was really amazing, because you just shut it everything right off and you see so much more.
Try it when you're in the produce aisle at your market and see it. One of the fun things that was a challenge. Well, I've done so much body work and studying about anatomy and whatnot, but look at your foods that match, like your cauliflower is like a brain and walnuts, and how nuts, just the food types that match the different things in your body and what they're, and then correlate the health aspects of them. It's a really interesting way to shop.
Oh, that's amazing.
You ever
I'm
want
definitely
to
going to try
unsee
that.
that?
Pardon me, Liz?
Oh, I just asked
Yeah.
if you ever feel like you want to unsee that.
I've
Those images.
I've witnessed autopsies, so I think the human body's fascinating. I mean, it's truly remarkable what happens, at looking what's there when your soul's gone, or that part of your essence is no longer in your physical meat suit, or whatever you want to call it. We were having a discussion with my daughter. She took our granddaughter to, they were in California. They went to San Jose to the Tech Museum, and they have a little bit of an exhibit left that we took our kids to when they were young. My husband was a funeral director, so a lot of all that kind of stuff going on. He worked for the coroner's office and all that. So we've been around death for a very long time, but they had the whole exhibit of, we had seen the full exhibit with our kids of where they take and strip off all the skin and they're preserved, all these bodies are preserved, and it's an art exhibit, but you actually learn about the anatomy of the body. And they have, like, one was stripped just the entire nervous system. And to see that, and then to look at a tree of how it's branched and all, so we are so, like the branches in your lungs, look at all the things that are branched the same way that are good for your lungs, pulmonary stuff. Like cedar tea is really good for your lungs to not get pneumonia, or to to treat a respiratory infection, which I just did this spring. So, and it looks exactly like the capillary structure in your lungs. Is really interesting.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. But although my granddaughter at 8 just 8 said, "This is rather inappropriate, don't you think, Mom?" Because they had male and female anatomy. It's like, no, it's natural, honey. It's not inappropriate. Culture has made it inappropriate. It's what it is. Yeah.
It's so true. I remember I went to see that exhibition as well. We had it in Dublin at one stage. I went with my mum, and yeah, it was just amazing. And they had the different examples as well of people who had like different sorts of illnesses and diseases, and you could see them all. And it was just really fascinating to see, because it is a bit like that thing of you're not sure, like Liz said, do you want to be looking at it? But then you're also really fascinated by it. And then it leads you down this thing of, oh my gosh, it's just so beautiful to see. It really sits with you. It's interesting actually that you say, you've mentioned before about having a lot of death in your life through your husband's career, and it's something that comes up in this chapter about death and how culture has kind of hidden it away. And it's something I was thinking about as well, because in Ireland, we have a lot of the open wakes and that sort of thing, though he does mention about how they make everyone look lovely with the makeup when they're reposing. But it is interesting that different cultures deal with death in such a different way, and that has been really hidden away. Because even I was dating a guy who was English, and I was living over in London, and we had to come back for my grandmother's funeral. It's about 6 years ago now, 7 years ago, and he had never seen a dead body before, and he was really overwhelmed by the idea that we just have them out here and people come and kiss them and everything, and he had to keep on like stepping out of the room and walking away, and he just couldn't be near it, and he couldn't understand because he hadn't grown up in that culture. And it was the first time for me that I realized that people dealt with death in such different ways. So that's something really stuck out for me in this chapter, the idea of the Irish wake. And it's definitely something we celebrate death in a different way. You know, we celebrate the person as well and their life, I guess, as well, in terms of getting together with all the family and friends and reminiscing and sharing these stories, and then also seeing the person.
Right,
know,
where
I
they've
had, like-
sterilized it now down in the United States specifically, they've really sterilized a lot of it and, you know, eliminated not only death, but birth as well. You know, it's not, you know, that all this used to happen in the parlor, right? And it was just natural. And now, especially these, you know, they talk about the entitlement of these younger generations and everything. I think part of that is we've stripped it down and made it so sterilized that they aren't even connected to any of what their physical being is going through. You know, they've stopped talking about birth, sex, death, everything, you know, everything that is truly human about us. It's really sad.
I had a friend who was saying, again, I don't know enough about like rituals in the past compared to now, but like she was making that point. She's Czech, and she was saying, I guess it was the same in Ireland, but like back in the day, whenever that was, you would like if someone died in the family, like, you know, the body wouldn't be sent to someone to like put makeup on it. Like the body would always stay with the family. Like if you think about it, like today we're, I mean, even in Ireland, right? Like although like we're a little bit more in touch, right? Like it's like, I guess you're kind of giving like I know they're like respectful and people who are, but like usually the family would keep the body, and they would like, you know, prepare the body for the wake or the funeral or however they do it. And like that would be part of like the grieving process. It's like you have the body and then it's like snatched away. So it's kind of like, I don't know, there's a lot of different aspects to it. So she was just kind of making this point, which kind of got me thinking. But I do also agree, like, well, like I know like what Shannon you're saying, like, yeah, we do actually see the body in Ireland, which I do think it's strange that in other cultures, because I'm used to this, that again, like it's even more like you're saying, Cher, like even more like just protecting the world from death. And he talks about in this chapter, I like that when he says like, we don't even want to call people old now, like it's like elderly or yeah. And you know, like he says something about like how in ancient cultures like older people were respected, but now like today's granny is cute. And like they were respected because they're closer to death, and like they may as well, they have this huge opportunity to become conscious, whereas today we we don't necessarily, of course it's individual specific sometimes, but have that respect for old people. So I really liked what and I mean I read this before and I remember this part, but I really like the way he put like some of these concepts about like old people. Old people.
That's right.
Rock on,
Oh,
Yeah,
I feel
reclaim
old and flabby.
Just don't call me
Hey, what a
geriatric.
privilege. What a privilege, though, to become old and to have this much life experience. So I think that when they, you know, it used to be more prevalent to honor the people with experience and knowledge, because, you know, before the commercialization of everything and the mass production of our food and everything was passed down. And you have to remember, this is really recent, especially with the technology that we have. It's just a decade old, truly, that we could, I mean, not even a decade for what we're doing, right? Around the world, we can sit here and have a conversation together. But to pass things down by word of mouth was the only way, or to show your tribe where you found these particular berries or this particular herb to heal this or that. All of that oral tradition is gone. And I think that's disconnected us from the earth as well and other sentient beings, because most people don't live in harmony with nature, because we can grow that in Chile and ship it here. And you know, you can always have avocados, or you can always have this or that. It doesn't happen to be seasonal, which is better for your body, right? So it's and becoming aware of that and shutting down the computers and shutting down things, getting outside, listening to other people. I just wonder, you know, there's so much dissension and division right now, and especially in this country, especially this year. But I just keep thinking that when you speak one-on-one with somebody, you connect, right? And you find something common and then you build from there. And I wish there was more opportunity for those type of connections. So this is lovely that we're able to do it around the world, but you have to take and commit to the time and commit to the being open with somebody to be authentic, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are scared of that as well. It's scary. It's that egoic fear creeping in of being afraid of, I guess, being wrong, or then, you know, getting defensive about things and people's different experiences. And, you know, I think, yeah, a lot of people, it mostly comes from fear, you know, that they won't put the time to doing these.
It does. I've been in a couple of these groups, and I've been in groups where we're all in the same room. And I find in my experience, when people leave a group, it's mostly because they have trouble letting go. Because this is a hard look at the self, not anybody else, not your partner, not this, not that, all of who we used to blame for why we are the way we are and we cannot find peace. This is about us. And not everybody is ready. They think they're ready until they realize, ooh, I've got to let go of control. I've got to let go of this, or I've got to take a hard look at this, and this is why I can't be here. That's just been my own experience anyways. People have a hard time with change. Even though they want to change, they have to let go. And letting go is very difficult for how things used to be. Sometimes, even if it causes suffering, they still want to hang on to it because the change is that much more fearful.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the shift to conscious living, rather than the way the world is now, this new earth is going to have to hit critical mass before people will really change, because, you know, like you said, staying in your suffering is easier because it's known. The unknown is scary. And stepping out into that, I believe. But yeah. But we're creating ripples, aren't we? Can you feel it? We're just creating ripples, and it's global, which is so beautiful. I think that's just really been my finding the joy of that, you know, that you're in Ireland. And my girlfriend just got back from there, so she just brought me all these pictures. So her and her sisters have come. Their heritage is from County Cork, and they've found all their ancestors' graves and all that kind of stuff. But this is their 5th trip. I think they did 4 in Ireland and 1 in Scotland. So
fantastic.
Over since 2011, I think their first one was on their mom's behalf when she passed, because she'd always wanted to go. So they went for her after she passed.
That's so lovely.
But what a beautiful, and I asked her, could you picture living there? Because it just seems like such a slower pace and beautiful, and it's just gorgeous. And they've been all over the island. So they've done the 4 quadrants, I think. They still want to do the south now.
Oh, great. Yeah. So the southeast is where myself and Anne Marie are from originally, in Wexford. But I was just on holiday actually in Ireland. I was just in Achill Island, which is like over really far west. The thing about Ireland, like when you get the weather in Ireland, it is one of the most stunning places. Like we got 2 days of sun, and it was incredible. And we were swimming, and the water was clear and it was turquoise, and it looked like we were in Croatia or somewhere, you know, really hot. Like it was so beautiful. But then, like, you know, for 75% of the year on that island that we were on, they have like mist. So it's a lot to deal with, all the mist and the rain as well. But over this side, on the east side, it's not too bad. We don't get as much rain.
But yeah, don't romanticize it too much, because the weather is a challenge.
Yeah.
In northern Minnesota,
What's the weather like
it's
there?
gray and monochromatic the majority of the year, because even
Oh, really?
this is the beautiful time, because, well, you have the joke is, what do you do in Minnesota in the summer? You go, well, if it falls on a Sunday, we have a picnic. Because
We have a similar
and
joke.
gray. It's raining and gray, or it's snowing and gray and cold. So which hot and
Wow.
humid and gray, or yeah, it's although it's sunny today, partially. It's been kind of going in and out, but
Well,
yeah, it's a whole different
on
thing.
that note, Anne Marie, I thought about you on page 281. Because
What
I
does it
remember
say? The most beautiful girl in the world is.
that's right. That is right.
Sorry.
Well, I remember early on in one of our sessions, you talked about the weather really affects you when there isn't any sunshine for several days. And you were looking to see if anybody had any suggestions on that. Well, on page 281, if you go about 2/3 of the way down, it says, if you were far out in space, you would see that the sun neither rises or sets, but it shines continuously.
Oh, that's
I
lovely.
thought of that too. I have it marked here as well. But here's what you have that you. This is what I do in Minnesota. Ready?
Ooh.
My light, my little UV light, or full spectrum light that you can sit here and get your vitamin D and your sun.
Oh, lovely.
I have it sitting right here on my desk with my overhead light because I don't get enough sunlight. So take vitamin D and get a lamp. They help. They really help.
Or move
So,
to
so
space.
Anne Marie, maybe that could be like, you know, when you start to feel that way, because you were asking if anybody had any suggestions, is to remember that little line, that it's the sun is always shining. You know, every situation is neutral until we attach ourselves to it and we make it something that it's that it isn't. And anyways, that's just a little something I thought about you on that page.
Thank you for thinking about me.
Yeah.
I know he has something in Stillness Speaks, which I don't think is, you know, his little book with quotes. I
Yes.
think it's not, but yeah, he makes that point, like it's the thing of the narratives, like
Yes.
I don't know, but it's something like the weather is terrible, and then you just change it into it's raining, like it's just a fact.
That's yeah.
Or like oh, that person is horrible because they didn't call, but then it's just like they didn't call, you know, like that's a fact. There's no need to
Yeah.
feed it further.
Yeah,
With any
keeping it
stories.
neutral. Yeah. I have something else I'd like to point out. It's on page 291, and I'm going to read it. And I have not really seen this anywhere else written. And often people ask or inquire as to why do we call it an awakening? What are we waking up from? And Eckhart Tolle just explains it so clearly on page 291, and I'm going to read it. Consciousness incarnates into the manifested dimension. That is to say, it becomes form. When it does so, it enters a dreamlike state. Intelligence remains, but consciousness becomes unconscious of itself. It loses itself in form because becomes identified with form. This could be described as the descent of the divine into matter. At that stage in the evolution of the universe, the entire outgoing movement takes place in that dreamlike state. Glimpses of awakening come only at the moment of dissolution of an individual form, that is to say, death, and then begins the next incarnation, the next identification with form, the next individual dream that is part of the collective dream. And that is why we call it an awakening, because consciousness came into our body and became unconscious of itself. And we become more unconscious in lifetime because we live in an unconscious environment. Families, our communities, society, our towns, our cities, the news, we become more and more unconscious until we reach a point where we know there's something more because we've had it before, but we don't quite really know that we had it before until we wake up and we, oh shit, I always had this all the time. So that is the awakening process, is that we've always had, you know, when we're born, a soul is put into us. What is a soul? Energy. What is energy? It's consciousness, but we become unconscious of ourselves. I mean, you look into a baby's eyes and you just, that is the untainted truth right there, because they just have no opinion of the world at that point. It's when all of these experiences happen to us over our lifetime that we think that is what we are, our experience, and we're not. You know, and then when we start to search for something deeper because we know there's something else, that's what we're waking up from, the unconsciousness. And I've never really seen anybody else, any spiritual teacher, write it quite that clearly. Yeah, so to me, every time I read that, it's a moment for me.
So do you think that when a baby comes in, because I agree with you, you can see in their eyes, it's like they know, if they could just speak at that, is there a reason that they aren't able to communicate, you know, the true source at that point? For the rest of us to be able to go, oh, here, wake up, you know, because I think people are drawn to, I know when I was pregnant, everybody touches a pregnant belly. I think there's something divine, like you said, the divine is there. And I think we recognize that with the newborn as it's gestating and when it's first born. I think people are drawn to that.